This show is sponsored by Den 10 Insurance Services, helping businesses get the right insurance for all their insurance needs. Visit den10.io to get a quote. DENTEN.io. And remember, when you buy an insurance policy from Den 10, you're giving back on a global scale. Hello, all my entrepreneurs and business leaders, and welcome to the Michael Esposito Show, where I interview titans of industry in order to inform, educate, and inspire you to be great. My guest today is a renowned public relations strategist, a host of a top 1.5% of podcasts in the world, a best-selling author, and an international best-selling author. Following his service in the Air Force, he launched his company with the mission of amplifying the positive impact of exceptional leaders. Born and raised in Puerto Rico, he aspired to be an entrepreneur and run his own business. In the last few years, Imperium Authority has helped accelerate the growth of a broad spectrum of brands and companies in various markets. The special sauce is leveraging owned, paid, and earned media to amplify the impact of exceptional business leaders in all major industries. From technology to finance, business strategy, and Web3. Please welcome the founder and CEO of Imperium Authority, James Foo Torres, best known as Foo. What's up, Foo?
Hey, thanks for having me, Michael. I'm very excited to be here. What a detailed introduction. So I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, man. We got the opportunity to meet each other at 10X stages and to be in a room together of judging the Great American Speak Off. I'm interested in how that experience was for you.
It was a great experience because I came in and there was I forgot his name, the shark, right?
Robert. Yeah, Robert.
Robert.
Yeah, I can't remember his last name.
I don't remember his last name, but Robert, right? Like, yes. Robert from Shark Tank.
Yes.
And he's amazing. And so getting to get there, it kind of set up the tone, and the quality of the event was amazing. And then getting into the speakers and get that there live and together with so many people, like I could feel the energy even virtually. So it was an amazing experience. And then connecting with multiple of the virtual judges after that was pretty cool. And you're one of them. So I'm excited that I got that opportunity to be able to connect with people, so cool people like you.
Yeah, it was a really cool experience, and it's so funny. I forgot his last name too, and I know it's like a tricky last name, and that's why. But for me, that was a really cool moment when we got in the room, and we were then also exposed to the whole conference that the 10X Stages was putting on. And the thing that resonated with me, and I think speaks to your story that you're going to be sharing about Imperium Authority, is Robert had said, Grant was interviewing Robert. That's when we came in. Grant was interviewing him on the big stage. And so we had an opportunity to watch this and listen to it live. And Grant asked him, what is one of your biggest regrets? And, everybody always has a very similar answer when we are in personal development, in that we don't have regrets because all of our failures have led to our successes. But what I really appreciated about Robert was he dug deep and he said his biggest regret is that he didn't dream big enough. And that really hit home for me about like what I'm trying to create, what I'm creating. And when I look at your story about like, you wrote about how you would tell yourself what you would tell yourself 10 years ago about, and it's essentially the same thing. And I mean, I guess I want to kind of pass that right on to you right now, because why don't we just jump into it of like what you would tell yourself 10 years ago. So right now you've started this great PR agency, but you have a different story that you would tell 19-year-old Foo.
Yes, the thing that I mentioned to you that I would tell my 19-year-old self, right? Because I'm 29 now, is to start getting into sales, high ticket sales, because that for me has been that sales is what drives us as a business. And I wish I would have started sooner, because then I would have way more experience and I could be way more skilled. I'm not saying like I regret things or whatever, but if I I was exposed to the type of information that I've been exposed in the last 3 years, let's say it was almost 3 years since I started this, I would have gone to high ticket sales like right away. Like because it was just a matter of not even knowing. I got into like MLM and stuff because that was the thing that I was exposed to. I never got exposed of having the opportunity to do high ticket sales. I didn't know that was something that I could do and online. So that's something that, well, I mean, 10 years ago, I mean, yeah, I have probably Instagrams already around and everything, right? So that's what I think is just sales, because even selling yourself as a person, even to get a job, you're like being able to, sales is also being a great communicator, right? So I think sales is just the lifeblood of taking of a career, like regardless of what you do. And that's why I think that I would have done a way bigger focus on that 10 years ago.
Yeah, and having that like big, I think that to dream big and to, when you think about big ticket items, it's like when you're first getting started in something, when you're first learning, and like you just said, learning sales and what you're exposed to, it's like the big ticket item, we know it's there, right? Because somebody has to sell an airplane, right? Somebody has to sell, something really big. We know it's there, but because we're not dreaming big enough, we're afraid to step into that. So I love that you acknowledge that like you would have taught yourself right away. And it's something I'm experiencing too, like with my business and sales coaching programs, where it's like my business coach tells me the same thing. She's just like, what's to stop you for asking for those numbers? Why not dream big enough? Like they're out there, those numbers are out there for and you're at the bottom really with what you're asking for. Why not dream bigger? Obviously we also want to make sure that we're creating value to our process, but that's not what I'm just speaking about, dreaming big there. So I love that you acknowledge that. I want to kind of just dig into a little bit about your background, because I feel like that plays such a vital role into who you are today. So, you speak about, your aspirations to become an entrepreneur when you were growing up in Puerto Rico. Share a little bit about that story about Puerto Rico. Right now it's the winter here in New York. Why don't you warm us up a little bit?
Right. This morning I woke up, I'm in Oregon, close to Portland. So it was snowing and now it's sunny. The weather here is crazy. I mean, Oregon, especially in this area, it's bipolar, let's say. But yeah. let's warm ourselves up with a little bit of positioning ourselves mentally in Puerto Rico. So growing up in Puerto Rico, it was a blessing for sure, and I don't take it for granted. I mean, living here, visiting like Syria, Kuwait, Qatar, then with the Air Force and everything, that I got to appreciate even more Puerto Rico. And there is the blessing there of being exposed to English because of basically being a colony or a territory of the United States. And that was a blessing for me, because I grew up watching Power Rangers, watching cable TV in general, right? Like Pokemon, all these different things, and that started putting the English in me, right? So, and then growing, because I was exposed, learning English became a lot easier. And then I was very intentional about, when I was in 11th grade, that was like, look, I'm about to start taking College Board, which is the equivalent of an SAT that we take there. And I know that I want to have a good score in English. And I also want to have options to if I can speak those two languages, I can travel to like 2/3 of the world and somebody will understand me. So that was my idea. I was dreaming big. I just didn't have a way to connect the dots because I just didn't have the information. And my family is like, oh no, just go be an engineer. And I was like, well, if I go and go to the best school in Puerto Rico for engineering, that I get that thing, that knowledge, connections, networking, all those things that will open doors. And then I'll find what am I going to do as a business? That's what I thought, right? So I was like, that's what I did. So I went to college and I was in the best school, engineering school, Puerto Rico. And then I I was like, I'm a 3 year mark, and I was like 3 years and a half. And I was at a point that I was like, I need to do something, and not because of school. I was having good grades, but I was like mentally, like I needed to become independent. I was like, I don't want to depend on my parents. And I tried to do like a part-time and stuff, and it wasn't working out. So I was like, I'm gonna do full-time. And the best full-time job that I could find basically was going to the Air Force. That because the economy in Puerto Rico and the like limitation, I'm still not graduated. And that was like, you know what, I'm just gonna sign. I'm gonna go explore the world, get perspective, and then from there, then I'll go into something else. And that's exactly what I did. I used the Air Force as a, quote unquote, safe space to learn English, because now there's no hazing. And like I told everybody, hey, teach me. Like if I say something wrong, just correct me. I'm gonna be okay with it, because I want to learn. And that's, with my brothers in arms, my sisters in arms, and they were helping me out with the English, and that's how I became completely bilingual. And then on my last 6 months, that's when I discovered through an ad that I can do an agency model, and started learning about that. And then that path lead me to here.
That's incredible. The word that you use, and I read it too in your bio, you used it a couple of times, is intentional. And wow, for an 11-year-old to be so conscious, and I know you weren't using the word at the time at 11, but to be so conscious of like watching cartoons and like, I want to learn English. And then later on being very intentional. I'm interested in where did you learn that? Because now you're at an older age, you're like, I got to pass the boards, I got to do all this other stuff. So you know that you're being intentional. Where did that work ethic come from for you?
I guess I'm very competitive. So I want to be the best at everything that I can, right? So that's why I want to have the best grades. I wanted to play sports in places that I knew I could win. Because if I'm like not in a position that I cannot win, then I don't want to play if I don't know that at least I have a chance, right? Like I want to win every time. I know that I'm not going to win every time, but I want to put myself in a position that I have chances to win, right? So that's how that's how this came to be. That's how I analyzing it, because it's just me wanting to be a winner, wanting to be somebody that is doing something cool, something that matters, someone that you look and you can admire. Like I always had that thing, like I want to be an example. I want to be something that it's a positive force in the world, and a winner, really. Like that's just a big mentality since a kid.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. And so now you were, which again, I just love that you were intentional on doing all this stuff, and you chose the Air Force. Now there's other opportunities in the military. There's the Army, there's the Marines, there's all these others. What drew you to the Air Force?
About the same mentality of like which one is the best, and so that's what I was looking, and I started asking people. I mean, my stepdad was in the Army, my dad was in the Army, but then I have a neighbor who was in the Air Force, and I just started getting like, oh, the Air Force is the hardest to get in. Okay, so then I want to get there. You see, it's always like, what is the biggest challenge that I know that I can overcome, right? Like, and that's how I picked the Air Force, really. That's
wild. And so what did you do while you were in the Air Force?
I was a radar technician.
Okay, cool. So you were in a safe space, like you said.
That's another thing too. It's I also did it very intentional. I was like, I don't want to be in the front lines and stuff, right? Like a war can happen. Like that, I knew that, and so I was like, okay, how can I position myself in the best possible position that I can be safe, and I can be doing more higher level rather than just physical. Like I want to use my mind. Like I want to be able to do things that were more strategic. And now look at me now doing like strategy, or marketing strategy, PR strategy, and all that. So it's funny. That's
really cool. And I love also that you're just using the resources available to you in order to propel you to where you are. And this idea of teach me, of I'm not going to take offense to it. It's so important. Like I feel, and share your feedback on this. I feel like that's the path to growth. is to be vulnerable, to make mistakes, and let the people that we know around us, let them know, like, hey, look, if I make the mistake, let me know, right? Show me the right way, because that's the only way we're going to learn, right?
Yes, I've always been like that, because I know that there's always room for improvement. And I learn with time. Like I like the psychology of just why people. I like psychology because I want to know why I have the desires and the way that I think, and also like why other people say, do, or think how they think, say, or do, right?
Right.
So and with that, it came a way of learning about like the ego and learning about all these things, that then I was like, oh, so if I get triggered and if I feel like attacked, in reality, that tells me more about me than anything else, because there's a reason that I'm feeling triggered. There's a reason that this thing. So then I started learning about like, okay, stop letting that ego get in the way and just receive more information. Be willing to be humble enough to learn, right? And then there's that thin line, right? That it's also that don't let everybody influence you, right? So that's that constant battle I guess everybody has, and I have identified that I have it. And to this day, like I'm always like, okay, come to your own conclusions, but listen, right? Always listen, but come on to your own conclusions.
Yeah, no, that's so huge, to listen to what's going on around us and kind of like take what makes sense for where we are in the moment and apply it. So I'm going to fast forward here from the Air Force, unless you want to share any fun, crazy stories about the Middle East, into your drop shipping days, man. I mean, so like a true hustler, you're trying to find any opportunity available to you at this point, and you're like, not right now, but back then. And you're like, all right, what's this drop shipping thing? I need to learn about it. And here's what I love about this story that you shared with me, and I'd love for you to tell us how you got there. Is that you're like, well, I'm going to speak with the owner of the company. if I'm gonna sign up with this, I'm going to speak with the owner of the company. So you reached out to him. Oh, you know what? I think I'm mixing up your coaching piece with Michael Hummel. But anyway, get into the drop shipping piece with us about what that taught you.
Okay, so when I said like, right, like I was in my last 6 months, I came back from deployment. So just to give you a little bit of like that story of like the Middle East. So initially, my first deployment, before even getting fully certified, I went to Syria. Like I went to Turkey. From Turkey, we packed the whole site and then we took it to Syria. We flew with it, like, because I was a ground radar. So we are on a unit that we set up. We could go to like a bare base, like no cement, no nothing, tents, and then let's set up a site so then we can provide sky picture, friend or foe. So then I did that. Like I packed from Turkey a site to like from Turkey to Syria, and then in there, after like that we finished this up. We leave. Then 11 months I spent just in the States. I deployed again. In that second deployment, it was supposed to be to Camp Cupcake, they call it, which is Qatar, because it's a wave developed base and it's just, maintaining the radar in there, but nothing crazy. There's 2 radars. There's all kinds of amenities and stuff. And then what happened was the Iran Cold War thing happened there, right? And I was there. So then every Camp Cupcake became, no, everybody, you gotta get like everything. We're doing drills, we're doing everything because something can pop, right? Like that was the thing. And I was like, damn it. Like I was taking classes in school, like for Embry Riddle. And I was like, these things. And I was like, damn, like all these things happening. This is not like what I thought it was gonna be. It's supposed to be my easy deployment for getting out. And then like, COVID then happened. And I was deployed still. And then like, so things got worse, right? Like the Iran, then COVID, then that COVID delayed my deployment. It was supposed to be 6 months. It turned into 8 months. And then I was like, finally come home, like May 30th, 2020. And then I'm like, look, I am 6 months out of finishing with my enlistment. I already had a job lined up here in Intel, Oregon. That's why I live in Oregon now, because I had that job. But then I have like this safe space again, right? Like I love creating this like, how can I go all in on something in this certain safe space, right? Like I didn't know English and I went created the safe space with the Air Force, and now I didn't know business. So I created this safe window of like, I have a job. I have a job lined up and I have a job right now. So like I came with money from the deployment. So then I use that money to then like, okay, I have this money, I have time, there's COVID, there's not much to do. So I want to do something online that is pandemic proof. And that's how I started looking for drop shipping. So I was like, well, I see ads about drop shipping and stuff, and Amazon FBA. So I mean, like I want to do my own clothing brand and stuff. And I have some hats actually somewhere over there, and still, and some shirts and stuff. And that's like kind of like this was born, right? Like the bucket hat and the colors and stuff. And then I started like looking at that. I was like, damn, I need to learn how to drive traffic. So that's how I started looking, Googling, and like YouTube, and that's how I found Michael Hummel. And it was an ad of him saying about comparing this thing called drop servicing, and I was like, oh, so it's like drop shipping without the physical things. So it's like services. I was like, that sounds amazing. So I don't have to worry about inventory because I'm just gonna there's services here, and I connect with people and I make money out of that. And I learn how to, and the course, it was about learning about lead generation, SEO, and PR. And then I started learning those things. PR was the thing that was generating the most responses, the thing that I personally was most interested in. So then I commit to that. And that's how, Imperial Authority was born, and we're here now.
That's amazing. I don't know. Is that your computer that's got the bling going on? There's a sound that keeps popping up. I don't know if it's yours or if it's.
I don't hear anything.
Oh, okay. That must be on iHeart's end here. We are recording in the iHeart studios, and sometimes I don't have control over what is happening.
Yeah, my computer, I don't hear anything, and I don't even have my LinkedIn or anything open. So it's
no worries at all. But for you listeners, you're just getting a special ring sound, and that is just a reminder for you to take action on your dreams. So we're going to use that as like a manifesting ringtone for you if you're hearing that sound, and just include it in this podcast for everyone. So you're doing all that, and I love that you. I remember I was talking about this on our Zoom that we had a little while back, of like you had all these 3 different things that you were learning about, but PR really spoke to you, and so you started really digging in deep on that. Tell us more about that, about the PR side, and what really resonated with you about PR. Outside of it just working, because it was more than that for you. And what you described to me it was more than that.
Because I mean, I realized quickly that there is like basically infinite ways to make money online and off, like regardless. There's so many ways, right? Like if anybody can tell you like, oh, this is the best or this is the best. There's a lot of best ways, right? Like, so I was looking for something that would fit with my lifestyle, that I would be passionate about, and not necessarily like every single aspect of a business, because building a business itself, there's a lot of minutia that you're not gonna like, but just something that I could have like that North Star that can keep me going, even though like there's gonna be big challenges, because I knew it was gonna be hard. Like I didn't like I thought it's harder than I expected, but I knew it was gonna be hard. And that's why. So PR was about. I really like about the story, because nobody wants to be sold to, right? Nobody wants to be like targeted in a way of like, oh, like I want to get your money, right? People want to get told a story that then they buy into the story, they relate to it, and then they can get behind that story, that even that movement, right? If you can create that, which it will be the ultimate thing that now I'm doing with my company, which is the tagline of my company is empowering ideas into movements. And that is the reason that I took PR, because it was about that story and almost like selling through those stories and authoritative sites and have that authority that I thought it was cool. And also, like, I started learning that in business, a third party validation can go a long way. So that's how I committed to PR.
That's really, really cool. You mentioned that you knew that getting into entrepreneurship would be hard, but you didn't know it was going to be this hard. Speak to us a little bit about the challenges. And I mean, as an entrepreneur myself, I know what you're talking about. So, but everybody's heard my story already. So why not? Let's hear yours. What are some of the challenges that you experience, and how do you overcome them?
So the biggest challenge, I guess say like the biggest two, but let's say like the biggest has been hiring. Hiring is the biggest, and I guess it's almost at the same level with like sales. I mean, and that's why that connects back into why I would tell that to my 19-year-old self, because that has been such a big challenge. Because I thought that because I'm a friendly person, social, I was gonna be just naturally good at sales. I guess like that's what my thought was. I was like, oh, I just need to learn frameworks and language and stuff, but I got this. I love talking to people, but sales is completely different than just talking to people. Because there has to be that like it's a whole like game in an exchange of energy, and it's so different than just talking. So then for me, that those has been the main things of learning how to communicate properly, how to add value through even prior to actually doing your services, right? Because you have to find ways to like demonstrate value prior to, so then you actually get the sale. So those things, and then hiring part, I've hired a lot of the wrong people, and that has cost me like over $100,000. So like it's something that if I knew more about sales and hiring prior to getting into entrepreneurship, that would be a lot better. So that's why I say, like, you know, I advise people prior to getting to entrepreneurship and going on language, you can, but make sure that if you want to do it safer, just get on a job that you get the opportunity to start learning like how somebody's doing a business that you might want to copy that a similar framework, and learn about sales, high ticket sales, especially learn about how they hiring people, culture, all those things. So that way, when it's your turn, then it's about like having that innovation or something, carving that way into the market. But then you have those things that cost me a lot of money and headaches. So.
And I'm sure you've learned a lot of that through books and podcasts and all that other stuff. And one that stands out for you and stands out for me too, although I didn't read the book, is Gary Vee and his book, which you said it pretty much changed the way you looked at things, the book Crushing It by Gary Vee. You want to share a little bit about that book with us?
Definitely. So, I mean, I'm very passionate about this. So obviously I like this because, so remember when I told you like my first deployment went to Turkey, Syria, right? So I went to Turkey, right, first. That was like the first stop there, and I was pretty comfortable in there. Like the amenities were nice, the internet was good. So then I was very intentional again of like, well, let's make the most out of this time that I have away from distractions and anything. I just have my people here. We're working, but we're not working, or sometimes even working, we're waiting or something. I can be listening to an audiobook or consuming something. So I decided to I started consuming podcasts first. So the first podcast that I got into was Bigger Pockets. Bigger Pockets, I started learning about that, and I was like, oh, I like real estate, and I thought about going the real estate route, but then I was like, I felt like I needed capital and stuff. And now that I learned about it, wholesale and all these different things, but I felt like it wasn't the thing. Like I was thinking about it, but then I was like, okay, what else can I listen to? Or because I don't like reading much. Not that I don't like it, it's just I'm dyslexic. So tying back to the fact that I always want to feel like a winner, given that I'm dyslexic, reading doesn't make me feel like a winner because I'm slower than most people. So then I get frustrated. So I rather listen to stuff. So I got Audible, I downloaded the app, and they give you a free credit. I don't know if they still do it, but they used to do it. You get a free credit, and I used that free credit to get crushing it. And because I already, by that time, I already seen Gary Vee online, and I think I was already following him stuff. So then I was like, whoa, I don't know who am I gonna learn from. I know this guy that I watch a couple of his videos, and I like him. I really like his videos, so might as well let me see the book. So I took that book, and then I started learning the stories of himself, but most importantly, the stories of other people that felt like they were just such regular people that figured something out, like doing events and using LinkedIn and like just things like that. And I was like, damn, I could do that, and I could do that. And I was thinking about that, and that's what ignited my, like, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but this was the thing. Like, it's like, okay, I really want to start taking action into this. So that's how. But that's why that book was so important, because it was the thing that kicked that action. So
yeah, and I mean, Gary Vee was somebody that I followed very early on as well. Like I would watch all of his keynotes that he would do, which I learned a lot from the keynotes, in that you don't need to have an hour presentation ready. You just need to have about 10 or 20 minutes and then go to a Q&A. I love that. I'd be like, he does these keynotes, and he does like literally a 15 to 20 minute presentation, and then the rest is just Q&A, and then he riffs off of it. And I was like, that is so cool, because not only does it mean that there's less pressure on you as a speaker and as a performer, but secondly, you're really just facilitating what the audience is asking for. Like, you know, as speakers, we go out, and presenters, we go out with an agenda. We're like, okay, I'm going to speak to engineers, right? So I'm going to prepare a speech for engineers, and I'm going to, you got this hour presentation for engineers. But what if the room of engineers is like, I don't want to hear about that stuff. I learned about it last week. I want to hear about something else. Now you're stuck. But the way Gary Vee does it is he asks the audience. And so I've started to actually incorporate Q&As in a lot of the events that I do because of him. But I'm in, the part of you being dyslexic. So we share that in common. I'm also dyslexic, and I've spoken about it on the podcast multiple times about how I read books. Whenever I say I read books, I really mean I consume them through Audible. And Gary Vee is kind of like who taught me this. Not kind of, he did, because and you'll remember this, is that he was like, listen, people are always trying to improve their weaknesses, but that's the wrong way to go about it, at least in his theory, which I appreciate, by the way. He's like, double down on your strengths and have somebody else take care of your weaknesses. And for me, my strength is listening. My strength is video consumption and learning through YouTube and learning through Audible. And so that's why I downloaded it. So I'm with you on that. I love that you acknowledge that too for our listeners, because I know I've had other guests in studio who are dyslexic, and I know we got plenty of listeners out there who are dyslexic. And drop the book and pick up Audible. If we could share one thing. Another thing about dyslexics, I don't know if you know this, but I mean, our mind on a creative side works just tremendously more than the average mind. Like we're constantly creating and recreating, and I mean that's part of like the dysfunction that we have, I guess, which makes us pretty cool. So you picked up Crushing It. You got Gary Vee in your corner. What other inspirational people do you have? Because I know you got a couple listed here of like The Bull, Miller, and Kelly Gordon. And why don't you tell us a little bit about these coaches and how they've also helped develop what you've created?
Yeah. So let me just get the easy one out of the way. The big one, so the big one that I guess he has kind of become the gold standard right now for businesses, and especially like the marketing side of things, which is Alex Hormozi, right? Like I just gotta give him credit, because I consume his content more than I consume content of Gary Vee nowadays, to be honest. So yeah, he's crushing because he's so. I mean, he is so articulated and so efficient with his words, and very like the fact that he doesn't care how he dresses, and he doesn't care anything about people, and then he's just like, look, outwork yourself out, and really just talk from a place of experience. So just work really hard and then let your results speak, because you cannot fight facts, right? Whatever happened is this facts. I'm not saying, he's like says it all the time. It's like, I'm not saying that you can do the exact same thing and it's gonna work exact same way, especially times change. But this is what it worked for me, period, right? And that's it. And he's like, look, I'm not telling that this is the right way or anything. This is what worked for me, and I'm here. So I mean, if you want to follow it, like I'm look how high he is right now. So that's, let's get that out of the way, right? Like just kind of get that.
And that's how Alex Hormozi, right? He's putting out some really great content.
Yeah, Alex Hormozi is he's just like my top, like gold standard guy that I don't know, right? Like, and I will meet him at some point. I feel very strong about that. Because I have clients already meet him and stuff. So like, I know that eventually I'll get there. But then like when I say like Jason the Bull Miller, right? He started by being my client, and also like we kind of became he helps me out too. Like I'm kind of like a client of his, and also we're friends. Like we became really close. We've been rolling together for over a year and a half now. So given that I've been doing this for 2 years and 9 months now, a year and a half, it's a long time in my career as an entrepreneur. And he is somebody that he's the CEO of Strategic Advisor Board. And when I met him, we connected because of the military first. He was like, okay, veteran business owner. He always has a soft spot for that, for helping veteran business owners or veterans in general, because he's a veteran too. He retired from the Army. So we started the connection from there. And then I started talking with him, and he's a business strategist. And that's how he kicked. Now, like, look, I'll call myself Strategy Foo now, right? And that's something that is because got ignited initially because of him, because I started learning people for as long as it takes, and very strategic with every connection and everything that he does. And that's spending so much time with him, helping him out with his PR, and like just having those conversations and learning from his content, because I'm consuming everything from him. I'm talking to him, I'm interviewing him, right? I'm doing all these things for his PR, that I learned so much from him. And that's something that is very cool, that I learn a lot from my clients. And I'm always like, yeah, like I might be helping you in this, but you can help me on other things too. And I've always come with that approach, that it's not like, oh, you're paying me, so I'm here gonna tell you and everything. It's like, this is a thing that I have certain connections and certain knowledge, because I focus completely on this, but I can get your perspective on different things, or maybe even in this, and create something that is even better, because we bounce ideas of each other, and we're like, oh my God, like we're able to create this. So that's what the thing about Jason Miller, because he has supported me a lot. Like I've been a lot of times that I'd be like, damn, like I'm like buried down mentally, like something happened with unexpected with the media or something, and it's like my clients are mad or something. And sometimes he was part of like being a client, and he's like, look, don't worry about it, like as long as you're like an honest person, like I appreciate you being very straight with me, we'll solve this, right? We'll solve the things. So that is very key for me. Prior to meeting him, actually, I met Kelly Gordon. So Kelly Gordon, I met her like a little bit prior to my 6-month mark, actually. So then in her she's very good at, she calls, you always have like this voice that is like talking, right? Like bad, like trying to keep you safe, right? So she calls that like, that's your monster, right? So it's separating that monster from yourself is something that she taught me, and it was very, very beneficial, because it was a way to be like, oh, like this bad voice that I hear, it's not part of me. It's just a defense mechanism of this reptilian brain, how she calls it, that is just trying to keep you in the safe zone, right? And like we talk about, like I always been creating those safe zones. So she helped me to overcome, to like, hey, this thing is just trying to keep you, because change is scary, but then you got to embrace that, and you got to separate that from you. So that's one key thing that Kelly has given me. And then obviously throughout the journey, I still talk to her basically every week, and she helps me out with just different mindsets, right? Because things change, and So Jason's always there too. Like he's always telling me, oh, don't worry, it's just a season. That's a big thing of him that he says. It's like, this is gonna be a season, and then there's gonna be a different season. There's gonna be different. So, those key things is the things that I've been collecting in building my own personality in business and in life in general. So they've been very beneficial.
Yeah, and they also one of them taught you the strategy to use Slack, right? And
oh yeah.
and I love what you shared with me about Slack, and I was like, well, why would I use this platform? I'm already on Instagram and on these other social medias, and I'd love for you to share with our audience why that platform works really well for you.
So the great thing about Slack is there's no really distractions, right? In social media, there's so many things happening that's just easy to get distracted. But then if you have something somewhere where, look, this is chatting, but it's organized, right? It's not just this one group chat with everybody together. Well, there is channels that everybody is in it, right? The general one, announcements or whatever. But then there is the private ones where I have my clients and my team. Oh, then I have a contractor that is helping me on that same project. He gets added there too. And then they are already automatically part of the community that I'm also adding people that I'm meeting through podcasts, through just social media, right? I meet with people, and like, if you don't see my content, then at least you can always go to Slack and go and be like, oh, right, I can go to the Slack. Then I make like an announcements channel. So you can go, hey, I got a webinar or something coming up. And then I have different things for like creators and I've been separating, and obviously I keep adding and innovating. And so that's a work in progress, but I have 93 people there right now, and, just trying to keep them engaged, trying to always add value. So that's why Slack is being a great opportunity.
Yeah, and you've been constantly growing it. I think I was number like 80, and now you're at 92, and that's pretty cool that you're growing it like that, because it's an organic growth too. It's like you can't just put a big blast out to get people on Slack, nor do you want all those people on it either. So to be growing it organically at your rate, that's pretty incredible to see. I want to transition into your PR agency here, because on your website it shows, you're getting people on the cover of Forbes, on Entrepreneur magazine, and all sorts of different places. And one that also resonates with me, of course, as a podcast host, is a message that you had sent me once before, which was like, I forget if this is right. You might have to just change the name for me, but you were able to get in the room with, you say the names for me, of some really high level CEOs to interview them and get some of your clients the availability to get to them as well. You want to share a little bit about that with us?
So I guess this kind of attaches to like the owned, earned, and paid media, right? Because of the reason that I say that is because when you build your own media, or borrowed too, which is a term that I learned kind of recently, which is just social media, you kind of are borrowing, right? It's yours, but they can ban you or whatever, right? So when you create those things, like, having like a podcast, for example, right? That's something that you own, and then being able to then use that to lead with value. So for example, my client, Jason Miller, he got Robert Kiyosaki. Right. Because of the podcast,
That's
right?
What it was,
so
yes.
He got Robert Kiyosaki, and then now they build a relationship.
Author of Think and Grow Rich.
Exactly. No, actually, no.
Not Think and Grow Rich.
Rich Dad,
Poor Dad. Yeah, sorry. Thank you for correcting me.
Right?
Yeah. Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And he's also doing a ton on social media right now. But continue, please.
Exactly. So, everybody, like most people that I heard, like, especially like when I was going like back to Bigger Pockets and, what are the top 3 books that they changed? Most people sneak in like Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
In MLM, they use it, and everything they use it, because it's about the framework, not about like just like this thing for any industry. It's about the framework of like the Rich Dad, what taught him, and that's the thing that people teach now. Like and so that is the key, right? That's why I say, like, create your own media so you can lead with value, and then so you can earn media, editorial coverage, going national and everything, because the media looks at what's your previous media. They Google you, like, what are your Google results? Do I see previous media here? How's your social media looking? Do you have a podcast? Do you have a TV show or something? Like, they look for those things. So that's why, like, I create those things, and I help with the strategy strategy of that. And then when we build that, then like the earned media becomes a lot easier.
So how did you get your, I interrupted you and I'm sorry about that. How did you get your client in front of Robert Kiyosaki?
So it was just the strategy of building that, and then just connection to one of the assistants, as an assistant to Robert Kiyosaki. Yeah. So that was the main connection. And then they were like, oh yeah, like the War Room, and he's a veteran, and Jason's a veteran. So it was like, cool, let's just talk about the veteran and the story, blah, blah, blah. And then that they did it. Like he showed up, right? Like they recorded. It was pretty. Like after you have a connection and there's something that makes sense, it's like, well, you got a couple minutes to hop on a Zoom call, right? So,
that's right. Pretty cool. Yeah. And something you're being humble about, because I know we spoke about it in our previous chat, is you were also persistent. You speak about that too, is persistently following up with these individuals because they're busy. They have their gatekeepers. And you probably learned that in all the sales trainings that you've been taking on persistency, because anybody at a high level has gatekeepers, and it's more than one person that is taking in the emails and the phone calls and everything. And those are not going to get to the person's desk that you want to meet with right away. And so you have to just keep calling, right? And that's what you did, and keep emailing and keep creating value around that client, which you just spoke about. And you continue to do that. Now, what about the magazines? How are you able to get them into Forbes magazine and all of that other stuff?
Similar ways is by being obviously just doing our research, looking for ways to get in contact initially, right? Like getting an email, getting a number, getting on a calendar, getting on something, right? That you have to look up for the first point of contact. Typically is social media, right? When I find the right social media, I start by, again, leading with value. Just let me engage on your content. Let me let me make sure that I show up. And then I message them. It's like, hey, can I have you on my podcast? Or the things like that. Like I find something that I can offer. Could be like, oh, like I'll get you feature or let's have a conversation. I'll get you feature on an article. And given that the media is usually the ones doing, right, like contributors and everything, that they're usually doing the writing and the featuring, like they love when people come to them to actually feature them. So that's what I do. And then that's when I build a relationship. And I build a relationship and I look for ways that was like, do I have one of my clients that will be an asset for this person? Obviously, in the beginning, I'm very intentional about that. But then, like, I mean, sometimes when I come, like, it's not exactly what I thought, right, when I talk to them, or then they have other opportunities that I didn't know about, right? And then I start building that relationship. And it's all about relationships, really, strategy and relationships, and to genuinely care. Right. Just I genuinely care about people. And that's why, like, I'm very curious and try to leave value. And that's how I get shit done, let's say.
Yeah. But like, again, like persistence, building relationship. And I like that you brought up the fact about liking people's content and sharing it and everything. And, there's a lot to be said about that, because it gets you noticed in a way that is positive. When you're seeing somebody liking your content on your site, then you're curious about them, and someone might be like, who is this Foo guy? I'm interested into finding out more about him. And then the things that you like, you're probably very intentional about as well. So it kind of goes down the rabbit hole of like, what did he like and why did he like that, and having a conversation around it to lead to that relationship. I also love that you focus on relationships. I want to bring this back full circle to this dreaming big and going back to the idea of creating a bigger dream for ourselves, and you focusing on big ticket now and selling big. And as we start to wrap up this episode here, what are maybe 3 tips that you can share with our audience about being able to create the value around selling big ticket?
So first of all, look for people that have something already valuable that you can sell. That's what the first thing I would say. Just networking will be that first tip. just find the right people to be around. If your family, you're in a small town or something, and you feel like their environment is not helping you with that, then move. Find a way to move. Like that's kind of what I did with the Air Force, right? Like just got out and find other ways to then get out of that environment and look for other things. So that was the first thing: network and get into an environment that you can thrive. Get around with a lot of people that know a lot more about a lot more than you, and that have a life that you want to have. The other thing is to be humble enough to learn and to have the awareness that you don't know as much as you might think, and that you can be corrected, and that doesn't mean that it's not a negative thing, right? And I kind of said that before, and I would say that that third tip is to take risk. Just go for it. Like look for something that you're willing to commit to, regardless if you don't knew about it before or anything. You don't have to have the special background to do something. Like you can start from zero. So just you find something you want to do it that aligns with your values, your lifestyle. Go for it and figure it out along the way. Obviously, there's some make sure that you don't put yourself on a predicament where it's like your livelihood gets affected, but be willing to risk, especially when you're young. Like you're young, you have nothing to lose. You have so much time, like you can lose everything and build it back up. So go try things and find something you're willing to commit to, and then just give it your all. Because if you're not willing to give it your all, then why even start it in the first place?
I love that. And so what is something that you're intentional about today?
I'm very intentional about becoming the best version of myself, physically, mentally, and spiritually, in a way that I can give value. Like I want to be a person that gives so much value in a very organized, strategic way. So it's not like, well, I know this and I know that and I know that. Yeah, but like make sure that I am addressing needs, and I am doing it in an organized manner, so I can then help people, guide them instead of confusing them and overwhelm them.
Yeah, and you also mentioned to me that you're looking to work with people who want to make a positive change in the world, and I think that that speaks volumes for the work that you're doing and the people that you're working with. So as we conclude here, I love who you quoted for your mantra. This is great. Like typically a lot of people that come on the show, they're quoting like Napoleon Hill or Ed Millett or like big name Grant Cardone, like big names of inspirational people and all this other stuff. Anybody, go down the list. Go Tony Robbins and all these different people. And you quoted Shia LaBeouf, the actor, and I love this because Shia. Before I get into the quote, real quick, he reinvented himself. So it's incredible. When I saw that you quoted him, I was just like, it reminded me of his story of like this kid's journey. I remember seeing Shia on a talk show back when he was a kid. He was just doing like the first movie he did was with Will Smith, or the first one that people knew about was with Will Smith, and it was iRobot. And he was like a kid in that. He was like 17, 18 years old. And he had this career ahead of him to just be like this great actor and everything. And he did. He built this great career. And then, things happened for him from a mental state. And then he fell off and nobody really learned a lot about him. But if you follow his story, you learn that he actually reinvented himself and became a very intentional person, went a very introspective person. And so I love that you quoted him, because I don't want to take too much more away from probably why you quoted him. And you said, at the end of everything is going to be okay. And if it's not okay, is not the end.
Okay, let me maybe I probably misquoted, but he says like, in the end everything is gonna be okay. Mm-hmm. And if it's not okay, it's not the end. Mm-hmm. So that's something that it hit me when I heard it. And because it was a very emotional podcast that he did with the guy from like The Walking Dead and The Punisher and stuff. I forgot his name. Um, and I was like, wow, like, because, during this entrepreneurship, it's like, it feels like a lot of things go wrong often, right? So it's for me, it was like I was kind of like on a low point when I heard that, and it's like, damn, like, okay, so if it's not okay right now, it's not the end.
Mm.
So that I just kept me pushing, and I feel a lot better now, and that's something that's like a mantra for me now, right? It's just something that I'm all the time like, I feel overwhelmed and something's going wrong. I'm like, look, if it's not okay right now, it's just not the end, because at the end everything is gonna be okay, right? So, and that's how I live by that. And another quote that I want to kind of leave people with, because it's impactful for me, that's Terrence X Johnson. He taught me this, which is, he told me, you don't get what you want, you get what you believe. And that's
Mm.
something that is very stuck with me, because it's that you have to be able to believe in something to be able to get it manifested into your life, not just saying that you want it. You have to believe that you can actually achieve it or have it.
I love that. You get what you believe. I mean, it's really speaking about, like you just said, manifesting what you want in your life. I mean, you've manifested your entire life so far, journey, and you're still so young. When I read, 10 years, if I went back 10 years, it might be speaking to my 19-year-old self. I'm like, he's 29. He's 29. Damn, this guy's crushing it.
Thank you.
Throwback to the book for you. Come on. You've created a life for yourself. And I think that also speaks to being intentional. You knew you wanted more, and so you were intentional about learning English. You were intentional about joining the Air Force. You were intentional about taking that course on learning about SEO and PR and focusing on that. I mean, you're an example. I love interviewing you right now because you're just an example of someone who manifested their life. But also, other reason why I love interviewing you right now is because you come from an immigrant background. You came to the States from Puerto Rico. You came not knowing English. I mean, you had to learn it along the way. You came from almost nothing really in that respect, right? You just were dropped off after you were deployed, and now you had to figure it out. And I think that anybody listening right now, no matter where they are, or, right now, if you're listening, wherever you are right now, I mean, I feel like, to me, this podcast episode is so valuable to you because, I mean, Foo, it's just amazing, man, what you've done. And there's like 5 people right now off the top of my head I'm thinking about that I'm like, you have to go listen to his episode because you're going to be inspired to go do something. So I want to thank you so much and appreciate you for coming on today.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And the last thing I want to say is, like, I'm still reinventing myself, and now, like, I've learned from the clients that were winning and the clients that were not winning, that just PR and getting that attention and visibility is not enough, but you have to have an infrastructure that supports it too. So that's why, like, I'm doing more of a marketing strategy now rather than just focusing on PR. But at first, you got to find something, right? Something that you can differentiate yourself. But as you start learning, then you start, opening, okay, I can fix this other friction points and challenges of my clients. And that's where I start opening out to more of a marketing strategy rather than just focus on PR. Never gonna go away from PR, because that's a big part of marketing, especially nowadays where, like, ads and all that, like, getting into editorial is a great way to actually get people to be receptive. But I just wanted to say that it's like, look, I reinvented myself, and I'm still am, and I still will. Like, there's always room for improvement, and I just invite people to do the same.
I love that. And I mean, I'll drop the Tony Robbins quote for you right now. If you're not growing, you're dying. So,
Exactly.
all right. So for all of our audio listeners, could you just share with everybody how they can find you on social media?
James L. Foo, as in Louis, Foo, Foo, James L. Foo. That's my handle. Now I started putting my new handles to Strategy Foo. That's my handle on, like, in YouTube, and then in Instagram I could get Food Dog, and I think that's like my, like, creature that I identify with, and obviously has my last name is in that name, right? So it's kind of like cool. So Strategy Foo is something that I'm branding now, but if not, then my biggest social media is Instagram, which is James L. Foo.
James L. Foo. And yeah, that'll all be in the show notes for everyone. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been tremendous. I also want to acknowledge your service in the Air Force and thank you for your service. It was very much appreciated.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you for listening to the Michael Esposito Show. For show notes, video clips, and more episodes, go to michaelespositoinc.com/podcast. Thank you again to our sponsor, Den 10 Insurance Services, helping businesses get the right insurance for all their insurance needs. Visit den10.io to get a quote. That's DENTEN.io. And remember, when you buy an insurance policy from Den 10, you're giving back on a global scale. This episode was produced by Uncle Mike at the iHeart Studios in Poughkeepsie. Special thanks to Lara Rodrian for the opportunity and my team at Michael Esposito Inc.